Hey kids, welcome back to the channel. I'm Uncle Frank, and I hope that you are having a great day. Now, in a previous video, I went over my top 5 books that I think you should have in your D&D 3.5 or 3rd edition collection. And in this video, I'm going to be going over what I think are the top 5 Pathfinder thick books that you should have in your collection if you are interested in playing the Pathfinder roleplay game. Now, this is going to be one of 2 videos. I will have a second one out at some point going over the 5 thin books I think you should have for Pathfinder, because there are a lot of really good ones in the thin, tiny book category that I think are amazing for any Pathfinder library. And the other thing to keep in mind before we begin is that Pathfinder is, for the most part, fully compatible with D&D 3rd edition 3.5. There are some minor changes you have to do between the editions with the materials you get from the books, but it's a relatively simple conversion, and I have had several games where I play with the D&D rule set with material I got from Pathfinder books. So if you want these for your Pathfinder game, or if you're interested in running these for your D&D game, these are 5 books I think you really should consider getting. Now, first up, we have Ultimate Intrigue, a book that is quite different from the rest of the Pathfinder library. You see, while most thick books are all about giving players access to new weapons, spells, and abilities, this book is all about giving players and game masters rules for solving battles with words, seeking crazy mysteries, uncovering conspiracies, all that intriguey nonsense. And it is an absolutely great book. And while it does provide extra tools, weapons, etc. for players, it also provides a whole plethora of crazy abilities that you can use in a game that's more, I don't want to say like mentally challenging, because like all Pathfinder, all role-playing can be mentally challenging, but this book really encourages the kind of subtle, like, behind-the-scenes scheming that you get to see behind like spy characters. And to that effect, it introduces a new class, the Vigilante, which is really cool because it's like the one class that focuses on having an alter ego. This book gives rules for pursuit, which can make for really elaborate tracking sequences or really thrilling chase sequences in any kind of combat. Let's say that there's an enemy noble who you caught red-handed trying to poison an ally. This book gives you all the rules you need for finding him, tracking him, or chasing him through a set of alleyways. This book gives you the rules a game master would need to set up a nemesis, a specific nemesis for the players, and kind of gives you assistance with making that nemesis more engaging for the players. Most importantly, Ultimate Intrigue gives players and game masters access to a rule set that allows for a completely different kind of campaign. If you've ever wanted to be a spy, finding his way through a web of deceit and schemes, this is the book for you. Now, next up, we have Ultimate Combat, and if there was one book in the Pathfinder library I would recommend for you beyond the core rules, this would probably be it. It gives access to my favorite class, the Gunslinger, which is absolutely overpowered in certain situations, and it also gives rules for siege weapons, vehicles, all kinds of primitive weapons like stone and like alternative metal like gold equipment. It's an amazing book. I'm going to be really brief on it. Ultimate Combat is a really good book. It gives players access to new kinds of combat, and it gives game masters access to a whole lineup of really cool toys to include in, I don't want to say like more realistic medieval battle scenarios, but it gives you the rules for like siege weapons like ballista and such. It's really cool. It's a good book. If you've ever wanted to build a gladiator fighting in the Colosseum, then this book has most of what you'll need. And if you've ever been curious about what a pistol does to a knight in shining armor, this book has you covered. Our third entry is Ultimate Wilderness. And yes, I know it's another Ultimate book, but relax. This is the last one, I promise. Much like how Ultimate Intrigue gives players access to the rules they'll need in order to play as a more crafty spy, this book gives players and game masters everything that they'll need in order to play an adventure out in the wild, in the woods. There's rules for scavenging wild plants, harvesting animals for their unique parts. There's rules for hazards you might encounter while out in the wild, and there's a plethora of archetypes for classes that make them more suited for survival out in the rugged wilderness. While the actual exploration rules are a bit light in this book, it does leave a lot to be desired. What it doesn't leave out is rules for animal companions and new ways to train animal companions. There's like a solid 30 pages in this book dedicated to animal companions alone, whether it be new companions that you can find out in the wild, or just new feats and ways to train them. It's actually kind of crazy how much is in this book for you players out there who want to raise your interesting companions. There's actually 3 new races in this book: the Gathlanes, the Gorans, and the Vineleshies. And there are people who will say the Gorans are the best, but I disagree, because the Vineleshies are absolutely adorable, and I love playing with them whenever I have the chance. One kind of bad thing about this book is that it does give us a new class, much like Ultimate Intrigue, the Shifter class. And I'm going to be very honest, it's not a great class for combat. It's a great class for roleplay, because it's kind of like a combat druid. You're like a defender of the druid circles, a primal defender of the forest, using forest animal energy to defend what's yours, basically. And I think on a roleplay level, it's a cool class, but I've built several characters, and I've had some Munchkin friends of mine, some min-maxers, build some shifter characters, and none of them have ever turned out that great. And maybe it's just because we've been building them all wrong, but it's just not been very enjoyable to like fight as one for long periods of time, or to be one in a drawn out kind of epic adventure. Going on a short quest as one, fine. Being one for long periods of time, that's really the only negative thing I have to say about this, though. If you ever wanted to terrify your players or shock your game master, then you want the Horror Adventures, our 4th recommendation, and I do enjoy this book a great deal. Not only does it have a lot of spooky rules for the game master to use to scare the players in a horror-themed adventure, but it's got a lot of cool toys for players to use, too. This book has a whole pile of rules related to sanity, fear, madness, corruption, being cursed. It's got a small arsenal of equipment for you to use in your horror games. It's got a nice set of creatures to throw at your players. It's got new rules for lycanthropy, vampirism, and more, and it's just a really great book. If you've ever wanted to play the ultimate Halloween campaign, this is the book for you. And finally, we have something a bit different with the Inner Sea World Guide. Now, this book is a bit different from the rest because it's not really a crunch or mechanic heavy book. This is a world guide, which means it gives you everything you need to know about the world of Galarian, or at least the world of the Inner Sea, during the time of Pathfinder 1st Edition. Now, for those of you who don't know, I am an absolutely massive lore buff. I love stories, I love world building, I love all the characters that have really nice backstories, and this book kind of gives you all of that and more. It tells you about the different countries, it gives you a good background for the history of the Inner Sea region, as well as the individual countries that you can find within it. A huge host of characters are detailed in this book, and it's really great. Yeah, there are some player options. In this book, there's a handful of weapons and gear for them, but it's mostly just a breakdown of the world that most Pathfinder 1st Edition games take place in, at least the ones that were produced by Paizo. More to the point, it can serve as an excellent piece of inspiration for any game master that wants to design their own setting. If there's something in this book that you really like, you can always retool it for your own world. That's part of what being a game master is all about, after all, using what you like and kind of molding it to the game you're playing with your players. Now, this really is more of a game master book. Like I said, there is some stuff for players in here, but I think if you are a game master and you are really, really into learning about the world you're putting your players in, this is basically the only book you'll ever want to have. And there we have it, 5 books that you should have in your Pathfinder library. Stay tuned for part 2, because I'm going to be going over the 5 thin books that I think you should really have in your library as well. Let me know what you thought of this video in the comment section below. Please leave a like, share, and subscribe and all that jazz, and I will see you kids in the next video.